All right, good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to get started with today's webinar. And today we're going to be talking about strategies that you can implement at the dealership level to get your unfair share of new model launches that come from the OEM. This is a topic that I've been talking about quite a bit recently, specifically in this sort of inventory depressed scenario that we're in right now. And as I think about going through this inventory shortage that we're in and the new model launches that are coming out, what better way to take advantage of some market share gain opportunities than to really ride the wave of the OEMs coming out with some new product that the consumers are going to get excited about, the consumers are hungry for because we know the demand is so high. And just, again, market share is the name of the game, and I think this is a great opportunity. So some exciting content today. And if anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to put that in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them throughout. And let's go ahead and get started. So first, meet the panel today. I will be, my name's Cody. I'll be moderating the conversation between Stacy from IHS and Megan from Force Marketing. Two ladies with a depth and wealth of auto knowledge, industry experience, really heavily at the tier 3 level, and they're going to bring some real exciting insights to the conversation today. Quick overview for those who do not know Force and who we are and what we do. We are an omni-channel company that specializes in personalized marketing across all phases of the customer journey, to the variable digad side, to the one-to-one personalized nurturing and communications, to the fixed ops and retention and loyalty, and then sort of connecting everything, not only through data, but as I mentioned already, through personalization. So an agenda for today. First, we're going to just start with a quick state of the state. Most dealers that I speak to, and really most OEMs that I speak to, have been executing the same strategy for years. And so it's important to take a look at what we've been doing to understand how maybe the consumer mindset has shifted. And I think this phase that we're in now with the inventory being the way it is and cars selling before they even hit the ground is actually a good springboard for us to take advantage of some of these strategies moving forward. From there, we're going to jump into audiences. Stacy's going to cover a couple different sides of audience building when it comes to new model launches. And this is not only a great place to start when activating any marketing strategy, whether it be at the tier 1, 2, or 3 level, but specific to these model launches, this is where you can really outshine your competition and start to not only curate the right audience based on the consumer behavior, but also find that first opportunity to create personalization, which, as we know, the consumers are just not only, I would say expecting, they're frankly demanding to be communicated in a way that meets them at their needs. Diving into the personalization side, we're going to talk to you about some creative opportunities to not only create that aligned omni-channel experience, so that no matter where we're having the conversation, that it's consistent, it's congruent, but what are some of the tools that we can use so that we can do this at scale? Because cobbling together an omni-channel strategy across several audiences can really be a tall order at the dealership level. So there's some tools out there that we believe can make this task quite a bit easier. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about pre-ordering, right? Piggybacking on what I said already about the cars flying off the trucks and into the consumer's driveways, right? Which is great for floor plan purposes. But why does that have to just be in an inventory depressed scenario? Like, why can't that be full time? Why can't that be how we attack these model launches and to start to secure interest in advance of these cars hitting the ground, again, to capture our unfair share and, make some more money while we're doing it on a PVR basis? So I want to start with the end in mind. I want to start with a case study. Now, this is a case study that was worked on with partnership with Stacy and her team at IHS. I should give Drew a shout out too on the IHS side. We know he loves a good shout out. But this was a great partnership where we did a lot of research. The team at IHS curated what we all believe to be the right audiences for this luxury SUV launch earlier this year. And then we combined it with what we're going to show you today with personalized marketing that connected consumers with an experience that talked to them about their needs, met them at their needs, created the right interest, but also with calls to action, connecting them with inventory. And to not bury the headline here, right? Like, this is what matters at the end of the day. I get these conversations a lot when I talk to dealers, like, how do I know my marketing is working? Like, I sit on the phone with my agency or my vendor, and they tell me all these metrics, and like everything is up and to the right, but like, how do I know whether it's working or not? This right here, which by the way is data, not from us, not from IHS, this data is from the manufacturer. This is how you know your campaigns are working. What we did was we took an analysis of the campaigns that ran in March and April for this model launch. They compared a monthly average versus the 6 month prior, and then looked at the national performance as a control group, meaning people who did not opt into this model launch boost strategy, versus participating dealers who did opt in to this model launch boost strategy. VDP views up 34% for dealers who opted in. Leads on this specific vehicle up 23%. Sales on this specific vehicle for dealers who opted into the strategies we're going to talk to you all about today, up 39% versus those who just ran with the normal game plan on how to launch a model in their specific backyard. And so again, the rubber meets the road on the results, and I figured, let's start with the end in mind, and now we'll go ahead and jump in and unpack exactly how we accomplish that. The first thing we want to do is start with the state of the state. And I'm going to throw a bunch of just lines on a spreadsheet at you all to get started here. And the reason I'm doing this is to really materialize and quantify. There are a ton of makes, models, and trims getting launched in the back half of this year and early in 2022. You see a whole page of FCA Stellantis here. You've got starting to get into some of the imports, some of the luxury vehicles, right? Starting to get into more luxury vehicles, some of the volume brands, some of the domestics, right? And looking at, is this a model refresh? Is it a carryover? Is it all new? Is it now fully electric, right? Like, what is it that is unique about this vehicle? What is your allocation going to look like at your dealership level? And let's determine whether or not it's important for us to go after that allocation and get your unfair share. Again, just rounding out here, more models getting launched here in total, and our team just gathers this as they're talking to the manufacturer partners that we work with. They're like, we're looking at roughly 90 to 100 new make model trims that are getting launched sometime in the next 6 to 9 months. It's a great opportunity if we look at it through a little bit of a different lens. And then, when I talk about the different lens, I think it's important to understand, what is the way that we've always done this, right? Like, it's not that we've been doing this the wrong way. It's not like the way that we've all been doing this is unsuccessful, because we're selling vehicles, they're profitable businesses, the manufacturers are doing a good job. But what I'm about to walk through here really, outlines the opportunity. So from a tier 1/2 perspective, depending on how big the model is for them, depending on how much production they're going to have, where it's going to fall within their model mix, and percent of overall sales, they are going to start 6 to 18 months, maybe even further sometimes, on a lead up to planning in and around this. They typically roll this out in some sort of national or regional dealer level meeting. At our national meeting, we're also going to hype up and launch the new make model X of this vehicle that's going to come out. They're going to do some big tier 1, tier 2, national, regional media push. Maybe it's centered around the Super Bowl or other, big events, maybe the Olympics that are going on now, et cetera. And then they're going to put a bunch of creative in the asset portal for the dealers. and say, okay, here's everything you need. Here's the turnkey packages. Maybe Google provides a list of keywords. Here's some video content created that you can use and piggyback on. But by and large, it's like, here you go. Now, dealer A, you do it your way. Dealer B, you do it your way. Dealer C, you do it your way. And this is the first opportunity where, when I say a disconnect exists, this is the first opportunity to make a better connection point for the consumer. For the consumer to get a better handoff from these efforts that are taking place at the tier 1 and tier 2 level. Because what tier 3 does is they call up their local agency, their media partners, maybe it's their certified BidAd provider with, their manufacturer programs or Shift or whatever. And they start to come up with whatever their plan is going to be. Maybe they have, created some sort of event that's going to take place, which, we could talk about the comfortability and the need for events in a post-COVID, even present COVID, Delta variant sort of world. And then they're going to fold it into their existing marketing plan. And some dealers do a better job than others, right? Again, the point here is not to call out that this is bad, that this hasn't worked. It's to call out that we've got to have better connectivity from tier 1 to tier 3 so that the consumer gets a very consistent, very congruent handoff from those tier 1, tier 2 efforts down to tier 3, but in a way that the dealer can just activate in a very easy way. So how do we do that? We start with audiences. So I'll kick it over to Stacy to talk you through some of their audiences, and you're going to see some stuff from some campaigns that we've worked on relative to the results we've already showed you here, and pay close attention because there's some stuff in here about really breaking down the old way of thinking about things versus some new ways of thinking about things when it comes to thinking about who's the right person to talk to launch these models for my dealership.
Sure, thanks, Cody. So we normally think about two different types of data. The first party data, which, that's your own data, comes from your CRM or your DMS, and you can extract that very easily. You can suppress that very easily. And then you can buy third-party data. It can be from an unknown source. It might be old. You're not really, sure what you're getting, but you think that you can marry the first and the third-party data together and really get what you need and get to the customer at the right part of the sales journey. But really, we'd like you guys to start thinking about the Polk Automotive IHS market data as second-party data. So it's a trusted data source, privacy compliant, and it's a known refresh data source. And so we're calling that second party. So we want to make that a coined term from here on out to let you know that you can pull this Polk data. And I just want to kind of roll back and remind you what's behind the Polk data. And so that's really 30 years of transaction data history, and it's modeled after over 125 million households. It's pulling everything from registration data to life events to segments. You also get purchase predictors, so we know when folks are in the market, when they are shopping. We also have garage predictors, so we know what's sitting in the garage and when it moves out of that garage. Anything to add here, Cody?
No, that I agree that it's important that you know the data that you are accessing, because I think dealers tend to have a blind spot into what's behind what it is that they are buying from a data perspective through their partners, agencies, etc. And to sort of pull the veil, lift the hood, if you will, to see what's underneath, I think is important. And I think as you're going to outline here and through the next couple slides, the part that has been a challenge for dealers is not only understanding what it is that they're buying, but even what's possible to buy. Like, go beyond just saying, oh yeah, these are owners are in market, and really start to do what you're going to outline here, which is to start layering on some of these attributes, these sources, etc., so that you can create a better experience for the customer.
Right, and so you're able to do that when you understand who the owners are, and through our partners, what financial segments they may fall into, and then ultimately, what are they in the market for? Let's eliminate the folks that aren't in the market for that model you're trying to launch and get to them early in that process. So we have some turnkey audience packages here. You can see the point here really is you don't always know who you're marketing to, right? There might be someone different than you understood. They might be defecting to a different vehicle or a different segment than you really understand, and we can pull that out of the pulp data.
Yeah, like, so when I think about this is sort of the first one of the big advantages that I personally like working with, Stacy and the team at IHS is when I talk to a Mercedes dealer and I start talking about their, GLE campaigns, right? Their midsize SUV campaigns. They're like, well, I want to go after Lexus and BMW and Audi, and this is a luxury model launch as well. And they thought the same things, right? These are the people that I want to go after. But when Stacey and their team pulled the data around the conquest and defection side of like what are consumers actually cross shopping, and who do they leave when they come over to your brand, make, model segment? When they leave you, where do they go? Well, yeah, I ordinarily wouldn't even think about putting Jeep Cherokee into the consideration set of somebody that we should communicate with, right? Or the Durango or the Pathfinder, or different Toyota models like the 4Runner, right? Like, this is about using data and specifically down in your local market to understand how consumers are shopping in your market. Because Stacey, correct me if I'm wrong, but like how somebody is shopping for that GLE as an example in New Jersey is not the same as it is in Florida, it's not the same as it is in Texas, it's not the same as it is in Boise, Idaho.
Not at all. It's totally different, and we can pull that data. That's another reason it's important for you to get these recommendations from a trusted source. Similarly, we have a win-back scenario that we've created, but you can also see that we've got some other variables that we didn't really even think about. Is somebody a loyalist to a luxury brand, or will they just kind of jump around? So you're able to kind of compartmentalize these different lifestyles so that you know who you're targeting and what you should be saying to them. That's why it's so important to have the omni-channel method at play too. You can utilize these style audiences, everything from Facebook to Google to CTV, all through the buying journey.
Yeah, and so it reminds me of a conversation I was in last week. There's an OEM who's doing a massive model launch of a full-size pickup truck. And when they're doing this launch, they're thinking about who they want to go after, and thinking about who's actually buying those vehicles, and thinking about creating the right audiences relative to who it is that could see themselves in these vehicles. And they said it, and I agree with them. When you think about the truck campaigns that you see on TV, right? Like whether it's your local Ford dealers or a national Dodge campaign, or Ram campaign, or a national GMC or Toyota full-size pickup truck, what do you see, right? They're dropping cinder blocks and lumber, and it's like, yeah, that's true, and people who do those things do buy those vehicles. But like people who just want a really awesome pickup truck, who kind of thinks of it as a more functional SUV, where it's really convenient. Like me, I got 2 young kids. Like, is it really easy to get the kids in and out of the car? Like, that matters to me. Like, what are the infotainment features of this vehicle? Like, I'll use the pickup functionality from time to time, but by and large, like, I need all these other aspects of the vehicle. And so starting to think about who's going to buy the vehicle, using the research that's available, and then overlaying some of these things that Stacey's talking about here with, are they on the go families? Are they more, people who are more into, the online shopping and tech and infotainment? Like, what is their lifestyle like, so that not only we can create and segment that audience, but as you'll see in a little bit here, how can we talk to those people with personalized content that speaks to them about how they will actually see themselves in that vehicle?
So with this one, this is a type of audience recommendation we will put together, and what's highlighted here, you can see, I hear this every single day. Stacey, there's no way that this model vehicle I should be conquesting, because I'm not defecting to this Equinox from a Sportage. I'm used to defecting to a CX-5. We see it time and time again. And so what we'll do is provide this style of report so that you know that you can actually target the Chevy Equinox, and those buyers are coming over to the Sportage. So we put together this style, and like Cody said earlier, it is different market by market. So you must get this customized strategy to be most efficient.
Yeah, and what I like about this too is it's really good conversation for us to have about what matters to the consumer, because when the consumers are, and for a quick definition here, right, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Stacy, because I always get these backwards, but conquest is who do they leave to come to you, and defection is when they leave you, where do they go? Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and so like if the number one vehicle that they are leaving me for is the Equinox, well then I want to dive in, and when the new Sportage comes out, I want to see all the areas where I beat the experience, the features, the value of the Sportage versus the Equinox, the Sportage versus the CRV. And as we start to, as you'll see, on the next one here, as we start to curate these audiences to start conquesting these owners, and I don't want to steal Stacy's thunder here, so I'll shut up in a quick second about how to activate these things. But we have to start thinking about who we're talking to and what message we want to put in front of them, because what gets somebody, on the previous slide to, defect from a Sportage or conquest from a Sportage versus conquesting from an Escape versus conquesting from a CRV might be different. And we need to acknowledge those. We need to be aware of those things so that we can create the right content while we're building the right audiences.
That's exactly right. And so what you're seeing here with audience recommendations, once we pulled out all that data, we know who we want to market. Now you're curating that message, which is what Cody and his team do so amazingly. And now they're going to say, all right, do we have an awesome offer? Are we doing a lease? Now we can get down to the partners like the TU and the credit ranges and all of that, and make sure that the offer that's on the ad is actually in line with the person and where they are in the buying cycle.
Yeah, and again, I highlighted this already, sort of a shameless plug for Stacy and team here, but it's a plug that's on the heels of, in full transparency, one of the complaints I've had about the IHS data set over the years is that it's been really hard to take these massive audiences that are really, really rich, really, really valuable, but really hard to take them and make them actionable at a dealership level. Like, it has not been easy, certainly for dealers, but even for some vendors. And what I like about what they've built here, and Stay, certainly feel free to, plug the Polk Dealer Marketing portal, is that now these things are there at your fingertips for the vendors, for the partners, for the dealers to just say, look, access these audiences and let's roll.
That's right. That's how polkdealermarketing.com came about, that same exact conversation. So not only are we able to show you how many households are available for those suggestions we give you early on based on your goals, but at the end of the day, we actually include a sales measurement tool that tracks the sales for up to 180 days. So you can kind of pull through and see those audiences I used, did they actually work, and you get a buy rate.
Yeah, not only from their dealership, right, but for the market as a whole.
For the market, which that's been actually a huge highlight. Everyone likes to see, not just from their manufacturer, but everybody within that marketplace.
Love it. So now we've got our audiences, right? We've got a plan. We want to go activate that plan. Kick it over to Megan here to talk to you about some ways to create this personalization on those audiences and to try to do so in a scalable way, because I think that's frankly the biggest challenge that dealers have.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. So I want to point out first that, especially if you have a dialed in model launch strategy, a lot of the times the consumers are going to be seeing these new images of the models in your creative for the first time. So if you get to market before everyone else, you're the first person showing them what this new sick model looks like. And through all the audiences that Stacy and Cody were talking about, we're able to ramp them into all of the platforms that you're seeing on the screen now. So from Facebook to Conquest email to direct mail, streaming audio, OTT, CTV, really any marketing that you're doing throughout any channel. In the middle, you'll see our OTT, CTV, YouTube Drive product. You'll see that the inventory is showing from the dealer's direct site on the right side panel. So once you get the inventory in stock, these are great campaigns to run to show consumers that you actually have the inventory and that you're ready for them to come test drive.
Yeah, and you know, one of the other things I think, Megan, that our dealers like about, because by the way, you should be doing this strategy for everything that you're doing, not just new model launches, right? Like consistency across channels where we know consumers are just like digesting their media all over the place. The other side of this is the attribution front, right? Like, how do I know that it's working? Why don't you highlight a little bit about some of the things with these tools that, you know, starting from all the way at the bottom from the transaction and working back up, where we're able to attribute on these things?
Yeah, so for the drive product specifically, we can track BDP views, leads, and down to the in-store visit during the campaign. So someone sees your ad and then shows up on the lot, which, as you know, Cody mentioned before, we still are in a little bit of COVID time. So the days of tire kickers are kind of out. So if someone's showing up on your lot, they're a real-time buyer looking for that vehicle. So a lot of that sales attribution is super important as you're making this marking this successful or not.
Yeah, that's right. Because, like, don't get me wrong, the digital metrics matter, but at the end of the day, like Stacy highlighted, like, I want to know who bought a car, and if they're actually buying cars. I want to know who that people are showing up on my lot. I want to know that people are submitting leads. Like, those are things I can attribute to an ROI. Whereas, yeah, cool, you got a bunch of clicks or you got a bunch of impressions. Like, yeah, that's great, but like, how many impressions did you sell last month? Because that's a really difficult way for the dealers to tie it all together.
Yeah, and these are just some more personalization campaigns that we've run: discovery display, Facebook, again with the CTV, OTT, and streaming audio. And you'll see this creative is super sleek. It's really important to get that message out there first, again, because a lot of the tier 1 and tier 2 marketing just isn't reaching consumers quick enough.
And this is a great example as well about tying in the creative to the lifestyle side of things. Because in the example that we gave before, when the audience building with Stacy was, you know, we've got those go, you know, on the go families, the chic society, right? Well, if you're on the go and you like outdoorsy stuff and you like the rugged camping, outdoorsy attributes of the vehicle, well, great. In the creative, that's what we should highlight to you. But if you're someone who just likes, you know, a nice ride around town, you like the way the car looks, you like the infotainment, you know, you like the interior of the vehicle, well, then that's what we should highlight to you. But without creating those audience buckets with each of those overlays and layering on multiple data sources together, like we highlighted, it becomes virtually impossible to give each person the experience that they want. That is a big challenge. Because otherwise you just built an audience of people who are in market for a vehicle, and that's great, they're in market for a vehicle, but what about the vehicle do they like? What else do we know about them? So I love the opportunity here to tie this all together, and whether it's in a pre-launch stage or a launch stage where we bring inventory into the mix with like a drive, you know, video product at scale on the right, it's still a great opportunity to connect that experience for the customer. So now moving over to the pre-order side of things, right? We have a joke in here like, why should Elon Musk have all the fun, right? He long ago got people really centered around the idea that they could pre-order the vehicle. Now, most dealers don't have the capability to truly do a pre-order like an Elon Musk does, because they're, you know, they don't know all the allocation they're going to get, they don't have them on VINs, you know. They don't make them to order in much the same way. But that doesn't mean that we can't piggyback off of the behavior that he already created. And frankly, a lot of our dealers are seeing right now in the inventory shortage scenario, right, where they're selling these cars before they even hit the ground, right? They're essentially pre-ordering them, right? Like, I don't have any, you know, I don't have any GLEs in stock, but if you want to order one, I'll give you the first one that hits the ground, right? Which one do you want? Great opportunity here and Megan's going to walk you through some of the details in and around this.
Yeah, so this is actually one of my favorite parts of the vehicle launch strategy. So I think we've learned over the past year and a half that in auto, we tend to either live in the past or in the moment and forget about the future, when I think that moving forward, the future is going to be super important and planning for it. So we've created pre-order landing pages that not only allow someone to reserve, or on certain brands schedule a test drive. It also gives information on the specific vehicle and what new features it has. It also gives instructions on how to reserve or how to test drive or how to schedule it, which is super important. These are all obviously linked to the dealer's site, and we've seen dealers obviously sell the cars before they're even off the truck on some of these reservations. This is another example. A few of the most important points are it's giving the value of the new model, right? Even if it's not a brand new model and it's just an upgrade, it's giving them what the new features are and why they should want it based on its new value. It also explains how to reserve. There's a lot of consumers that have no idea how to do this. They think the only way to purchase a car is if it's on your lot, and we want to convince them and teach them that that's not true. Collect leads and follow up appropriately. Like, how great would it be that you know that you have 10 test drives scheduled when they get off the truck immediately? And then don't forget about, obviously, the SEO value. If you get to market soon enough, your organic presence can grow and grow on the new model before a lot of your competitors.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to educate them on what's different about this one versus the previous one, right? Megan highlighted explaining the process, like create some hype and some urgency around this is just like a beast of a machine that's coming out, and it's great and everything's amazing about it. And you could be the first one in your neighborhood to have one of these things. But you just gotta, contact us today and we'll hold your spot in line for these vehicles. And then the part about the SEO cannot be overstated. Like, it just can't. Dealers, from a content perspective, most often grab whatever manufacturer page that gets added to their manufacturer certified site. We've got to have this content, have the appropriate metadata, the appropriate schema, maybe have a blog feature, highlight things from a content perspective in a question and answer format, because we know that's how people are searching. Right? This is a great opportunity to bring that content down to the local level before anybody else does. And again, get your unfair share. Like, go beat everybody else before the cars even hit the ground. So last point here is, and I get asked this question a lot, is like, when should we get started? Like, if I wanted to do something like this, when do I start? What do I do? Like, what is the best way to roll this out? And so what we suggest is starting to look at this as the first action takes place 3 to 6 months prior to launch, depending on how big the launch is going to be and what needs to be done. SEO pages are a must at this stage, so you start to create the landing page with as much information as you have on the vehicle. Coming soon, lots of information, at least for what's available at that time. And then also doing the audience planning. Right? Start to understand who it is that we're going to be going after. Then, 2 to 3 months out, we start to create some awareness in our local market via email and video. Two super cheap mediums where you can be super personalized, you can provide a ton of value in the way of content, and super cheap for an impression. Like 3 cents, 4 cents, 1 cent, 2 cents. It's so cheap that it's a great way to tell your story and be, as Megan pointed out earlier, be the leader in your market, to own that conversation before anybody else does. 1 month out, we suggest getting into some more of the action creating, responding type mediums, as well as some more impressions that are super affordable, super targeted to the same audiences, great attribution measurement. So adding on social, adding on streaming audio, adding on display campaigns in the way of the discovery ads like Megan was highlighting before. And then once inventory arrives, right, so we're talking pre-launch, now we're at the launch phase. This is where we start adding in inventory into our social ads, like with AIA, with Facebook, the Drive product that Megan highlighted with video on YouTube, Facebook, and OTT. Start your paid search campaigns, but really getting a good understanding of what is being run at the tier 1 and tier 2 level, so you're not competing with what they're doing, but you're grabbing your really low, ready to buy funnel campaigns and keywords that can start to capture some of that demand that you've already started to create for yourself. So you've got the demand creation and the demand capture working side by side. And then finally, post-launch. This is where we start to evaluate everything that's working by measuring how many people are looking at the cars, how many leads are we getting on these vehicles, How many of them are we selling compared to the competition? How much market share we do? And then evaluate and optimize accordingly. And early on, you're not going to invest very much, and you're going to start to ramp that up, and it's going to reach fever pitch of investment right around the time the inventory is arriving. And then depending on what your allocation looks like in that first, second, third wave of vehicles that you're getting, depending on how well the campaigns are working, you can appropriately invest against the opportunity relative to the ROI that you're getting. And I'll sort of leave off on this again, right? Like, this is all that matters at the end of the day. When dealers take on this strategy versus dealers who don't, they win. It is proven time and time again that if you have a well-rounded audience-first strategy where you are putting the right omni-channel message in front of the consumer in a very personalized way, dealers who do that versus dealers who don't will win. So action register. It's all about tier 1 to 2 to 3 continuity. Understand what they're doing, understand their timelines, understand the audiences and the demographics, get that tier 1 level information that Stacy highlighted from an audience perspective is now here for you at the dealership level, tier 3. Create that omni-channel personalization. And I, tongue in cheek with you every time, because you should be doing this anyway. But what a great opportunity if you're not already doing this, then to start doing this on something like a model launch where it can be very contained and very measured relative to a finite investment against it. And then start to experiment with pre-ordering. Right? Like, I was on the phone yesterday with a district sales manager of a brand in Northwest Arkansas, and he astutely pointed out that this is about pre-ordering. We want to take the pre-ordering on, but also it's about making sure that the dealership knows how to handle that conversation. And it's not just saying, hey, we want to get your pre-order, and we're going to try and push you into something we have right now. We want to push you to something we have right now. This is about building a pipeline of vehicles to sell to customers in advance of you getting the vehicles. Don't tell them they can pre-order this vehicle and then cram them down some other vehicle. That is not the way to do this. Make sure that while you're experimenting with this, you're thinking about it from the consumer's perspective of how they're going to interact, engage, absorb, and then ultimately act on what you're asking them to do, and how you're going to meet them where they are. And that is it. Hopefully we gave you some good, valuable content today. These are things whether you are an OEM and you want to push this out to a market, region, nationwide, we can do that and we can help. If you are a dealer, a single point store, needs help, we can help. If you're an auto group, we can help. Great opportunities here, again, to get your unfair share. This is about taking methods and strategies that are proven, but bringing them to your store and piggybacking off of what consumers have been doing in this inventory depressed scenario that Elon and team have already been executing on with Tesla, and just carrying it through your marketing and go-to-market strategies for new model launches at your specific store. Higher grosses, higher market share, everybody wins. We appreciate the opportunity to chat with everyone today. Our contact info is on the screen, and should you wish to have a conversation, any dialogue on what it is we've got going on, feel free to reach out to us. I want to thank Megan and Stacy for their insights and time today. I hope everybody has a great close to their month and a great rest of the week. Thank you.